5.1 Learning A. This is a relatively brief set of notes, just setting up the stock market and the stock market crash, explaining how the things really basically work. So you only need to add one thing to each slide. Feel free to push pause as I say each slide ends. So the basic principle financially that people in the United States take are that as they're a young couple, they have a little tiny baby piggy bank. They will have they have some money, excess money, but they want more. They want to turn it into a big, giant pile of money. Now, unfortunately, this equation does not include people who do not have excess money, or who don't, or who spend all the money that they make, because it takes excess money in order to create a big pile of money. So many people go ahead and spend all of the money that they have, whether they may have a big paycheck, a small paycheck, one paychecks, or two paychecks, a family. Okay. The other part of this equation are businesses. Businesses need money, also known as capital. Okay, capital is an important term. They need money to invest. They need capital to invest in their businesses so that they can make more money. So they need people's excess cash. They need to find a way to build up a whole bunch of money and make the things that they need, hire the people that they need to, and build the factories that they need in order to be successful. So people buy stock or part of ownership in the company. Now, when the company initially does this, it's called an IPO, the initial public offering. That's the only time that the company gets money off of this. Basically, it's the only time the company gets money. So in an IPO, the business sells little pieces of their stock, a certain amount of them, and they get cash. People get the stocks in the IPO, and then they trade them on the secondary market. For example, every stock I've ever purchased has been on the secondary market. That means I bought it from somebody else who bought the stock. I've never been a part of an IPO. Not a whole lot of people get the opportunity to do that. And when you get a stock, you don't typically get the certificate like you see here, but what you do get is you get, oftentimes your broker gets the certificates if they're given at all. Many of them are electronic today. The company uses the money from its IPO to build buildings or businesses or extra storefronts, servers if they're Google, and they are able to then go ahead and hopefully ratchet up their business. Okay, and what people do oftentimes is then they can see the value of their stock going up or down, either way. You can tell these people are either happy or sad, one of the two. So stocks are only worth what people will pay for it, and people will pay more for stocks if the company makes a lot of money, like Google, for example. Google started off in its IPO at like $106. Just recently, as of October of 2013, it hit $1,000 a share. Google has made a lot of money, and a lot of people think that Google will continue to make a lot of money. Sometimes people think the company will make lots of money and want to buy the stock. Netflix, for example, is a stock right now that is going really through the roof in its value because people think that Netflix will continue to grow at the pace that it is. So the value of the stock is probably higher than their sales. People try to evaluate all of the country's businesses by creating measuring tools made up of big companies. Now, we've talked about this before. There are 30 companies that make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average. There's 500 that make up the S&P 500. These are just indicators. They're not representative of all companies. They're pretty much just a guess about how the economy is doing, or how companies in general are doing. So bringing this back to history, in 1928, President Hoover wins the election. You can see here that he wins by a landslide. President Hoover is a Republican conservative, just like Harding and Coolidge before him. He said, a famous quote during the campaign, it said, "We in America today are nearer to the final triumph or victory over poverty than ever before in the history of any land. The poorhouse is vanishing from among us." He's saying we are done with poverty. We are going to win. There's not going to be any poor people in the United States anymore. Unfortunately for him, approximately a year later, the stock market crashes. Here you can see the Dow Jones Industrial Average. On the very bottom of the screen, you can see 1920 to 1939. For the first few years, from 1922 at its bottom at 63.90 to 1927, you see that it goes up with a few downs, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Go ahead and try to draw this relatively close to the, doesn't have to be very close to the actual thing, as long as it goes up here. Okay, by late 1929, almost 1930, the peak at $381.17 is when the Dow Jones Industrial reaches its peak. However, in October of 1929, all of that changes. And you have the stock market crash, which basically goes straight down and then continues to dive down all the way until it hits its bottom at 41.22 during the year of 1932. Now, the stock market will recover, and we know that eventually the stock market will continue well over $10,000 and well over $15,000 today. But this was the longest sustained drop in the stock market, and specifically the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which was created in 1896 to represent the financial health of the country. I'd like you to pause this and try to look at the artist's opinion. What does the artist think about this? Is there a way out, etc.? Add one thing to that. Same thing here. Here what you really need to do is make sure this political cartoonist talks about the really just shows what emotion has to do with the stock market itself. Okay, when people are saying sell, 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 what you need to make sure you write down is that when people are selling, the price is going down, and it continues to go down because more people want it, because more people are selling. And then once people start buying, and the price goes up because more people want it, so the price goes up. Now, this is just the upward spiral, but this is the more advanced one than we've talked about in class. In class, we talked about people buy stuff, then companies make money, then they hire more people have more jobs, so then the companies, then they can buy more stuff, and then other companies make more money, and then it goes up and up. Well, here, as you can see, I just want you to read through this and circle where the stock market impacts the upward spiral. I want you to do the same thing here for the downward spiral. And that's it.